So how do you train people? What are your recommendations to find the balance between all of those extremes, right? Like, don't be a
Yep.
politician that you're just telling your points and that's it. Don't just wing it because you want to have some really good stories in something that people can be
Yes.
memorable for the audience. So what are some, I know this is a huge question and topic, but what are some insights or steps or recommendations that you would make to someone who's preparing to go on a book tour, on a podcast tour,
Totally.
to achieve that balance?
So great. This is a definitely a big topic and it's a really important one. There's a few things I'd say. First is that the most successful people and companies that own their categories are the ones that repeat their point of view forever. And they don't get tired of repeating their point of view. And the reason why is because every new person, so there's two people you're serving, the people who already know about you and then the people who are finding out about you for the very first time. And so the people who are finding out about you for the very first time, they're obviously hearing the message the first time. And it's your core messaging that you've thought through, that you believe in, and that you know works. So that's obviously a no-brainer for you to share that with people who have never heard it before. The question, though, and where some people may think that it gets problematic is if people have already heard it and you're sharing it again. Do you reach a point of saturation of the message? And from what I have studied of the companies that do this the best is the answer is no. Um, and the reason why is a lot of people want to feel like there are other people who believe the same things as them, or they've taught them something, and now they are they now they believe the thing that you've said, and so they feel a part of your mission essentially. And so maybe they will go listen to all of your interviews on these other shows, but if you repeat the same story, um, they're sort of your super fans. Like if they are listening to, if they're like if you're going and finding 10 shows that Matthew McConaughey did and you're listening to them all, you could probably consider yourself a super fan at that point. Um, and so you're not going to fault him for saying the same story on a different show because you likely know that that show doesn't have the exact same audience as these other shows. And so there's a lot of people there listening for the first time. But usually very skillful skillful guests will be able to add a slight nuance to the story that might be a new nugget, but not a new narrative or a completely new answer, but a new nugget that adds to the super fan to be able to connect a few dots that they hadn't heard before. And interestingly, this is one way for podcasts to actually get new listeners because the super fans who are traveling around and downloading shows that they've never heard of just to listen to an episode of a guest that they like, they know when their favorite person is giving a good interview or they're they're learning something. They can't believe the information that they're getting from somebody they've already listened to for 20 hours and they're like, this is great. And usually that is because the host is doing an incredible job. And so that is actually a way to stand out as a show, is to be able to get the best interviews out of people, especially who have like shared this particular message a lot. And that's obvious, is to find out how you can get the best or a new or unique or differentiated interview out of them. And that actually is a way to acquire new listeners for your show, is because you will stand out. But one of the core ways to come up with like to determine what your messaging should be is essentially to come up with 5 to 10 stories or themes or messages you would like to convey that will help the listeners, but are on message for what you think will also help you. And then be able to apply them to most any questions that might come up. So it's like a theory of it's called like the theory of 5 interlocking parts, basically. And so almost any question you get, this is what you can do in job interviews, and this is what politicians do. But what you don't want to do is get asked a question. Politicians do it in a very like egregious way sometimes. Like they'll get asked a very specific question and they will completely redirect to a totally different thing. I'm not advising that, but I am advising sometimes the hosts don't know what is the right question to ask you to get the best answer that will help the listener. So you're basically helping the host get the best answer for their listeners by being able to apply the 5 to 10 core themes you think are important to most of the questions that you will be asked. So yeah, that's a few thoughts on that.